Hello, Maria. Welcome.
Hi.
I'm so happy to have you.
Hi.
I'm so happy to have
Thank
you
you.
here.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, yes. So many great things I know we're going to talk about today because of the conversation that you and I just had prior to the recording and just in our
Yeah.
chats and our DMs. And one of the things we connected with Maria and I is she said a quote in our chats. And I was like, oh my God, this is like the work I live for and what our world needs. But a quote that is really that you probably seen floating around online. It's like it says, "Every woman who heals herself heals the woman before her and after her," and that's what Maria does. And she has a very powerful story. So I'll let Marie open us up and just tell us, your story. Tell us.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
Mhm.
I guess my story is that I struggled with depression for on and off for probably 30 years. And for so much of that, I never understood why I felt so sad, so
Mhm.
alone, so disconnected. Even at the age of 13 or 14 and 15, there was this overwhelming feeling of feeling alone. But I had an amazing family, a family who loved me. I had brothers and sisters. I come from a huge family. Mum was one of 11 kids. I'm one of five, and we were all really close. So there was grandkids, my cousins. There was like 40 odd cousins just on one side. So there
Mhm.
was a lot of love and a lot of support and a lot of people. But
Mhm.
yet I still had this emptiness, this loneliness, this sadness, and
Mhm.
I didn't know why. And it
Mhm.
wasn't until I started doing what I am doing now, and that was at 40, that I understood that a lot of this pain and sadness was probably inherited. It wasn't mine, but I always felt like there was something wrong with me because
Mhm.
I didn't feel like everybody else. That was my perception of where I was. I was all alone, and this sadness became this overwhelming pit of despair, and as I went through life, and because I was so lonely, I pushed people away instead of letting them get close. There were so
Mhm.
many things that rolled on, and patterns that continued through life. And then in my 30s, all I ever wanted was to have children, and that didn't happen. And coming up to 40 and not having children, it was a grief so deep that I really did get to a point where I thought there was no way I could continue. The weight of the pain and the grief and the sadness, and it was just so overwhelming and all consuming that I just prayed to die, really, to have a heart attack in my sleep and just be done with it, because I couldn't take the pain anymore.
Right.
And I think that if you've never had that deep and overwhelming depression, it's really, really hard to understand how somebody could get to that point
Right.
of feeling like they want to end it. And I hear people talk about, oh, they were so selfish to commit suicide and do things like that. It's a conversation that we need to have,
Right.
because when you're in that state, there is no thought of anybody else. It's
Right.
not that it is just so overwhelming and it's so painful. And I don't know if you know how the brain works, but when you are up here, the neurons, light up when you're thinking logically, when you're thinking and expressing and working and creating and all of that. The neurons light up at the front of your brain. But
Right.
when you're deeply emotional, all this turns off, and all the neurons at the back of your brain light up. So when you're emotional, you're literally dumber because you've turned off
That
the
the thing.
neurons at the front of your brain.
Yeah.
So with
That's
the
interesting.
deeper and the more painful and the harder, and there's literally no logical thought going on.
That's
It
wow.
is so you're all you can feel is your own pain, your emotion, and it's literally drowning you or suffocating you. It could be one that you could feel. There is
Yeah.
no thought of anybody else. It's impossible, and I think being there, having been in that way, I understand it better. So I know where those other people, even though we don't want them doing that, I understand where they're at.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
hopefully we can talk about the things they can do to to get back from that, to stop suffocating and drowning, because I know that's where I was.
Right. And
Yeah,
knowing
and
that is very fascinating what you just shared about the science. That's very, very fascinating.
yeah, and I didn't
Yeah.
know any of the science until
Yeah.
after I had healed myself and learnt so much about all the different things, our biology, how women work
Yeah.
differently than men, how we feel differently, how we process information differently. Although the neurons, that's the same. We use the different, that emotion turning off our logical thinking.
Yeah.
And you know what? We can fight that state for a year, 10 years, 20 years. And it takes one moment where you're not thinking that can be that one moment that's too much.
Wow.
And it doesn't mean that they didn't love the people around them or that they didn't want to be still here. It was just one moment when it was just all too much.
You did just
That's
got
all
it.
it takes when it is just so heavy.
Wow. Wow. That is deep. That really is. Like I have goosebumps just when you sharing that because your story almost sounds a little similar to, I will say, my niece, because she came from a very loving family and smart, straight A's, like just an
Yeah,
amazing young woman. And, yeah, had typical teenage stressors, but there was just no rhyme or reason. Still to this day we question it, but with you sharing
absolutely.
that with the mind and the brain and what happens and how there's just parts, logic just gets turned off.
It
Wow.
turned off, yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
deep.
think it's really important to know that we have, and it was definitely me, there was no specific event
Yeah.
or trauma that caused that. So I now know and believe that pain and that sadness and that loneliness and that grief had been passed on through the DNA to me from my epigenetics, from that bloodline, from my mother or grandmother or great, 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 great. It could have been 14 generations ago. And
Right.
it could be all the pain of 14 generations or more,
Yeah.
hundreds of years.
Yeah, that's deep.
So it had nothing to do with the people in my life or the events or experiences that I had had.
Mhm.
I hope that helps people who have lost
Yeah,
people. It's not your fault.
right.
How could you possibly know what's sitting in your DNA? How could you possibly know what someone else is going through in their mind if they don't tell you? And I
Mhm.
never shared that with anybody.
Right.
I couldn't understand it.
Yeah, you were probably
And
questioning it.
therefore I couldn't share that with other people. How could they understand it when I didn't?
Right,
You
right.
know?
Yeah, it's just like we always say, my sister and I, one of my sisters, we've talked about it, just the awareness, bringing awareness to something is when you're like, okay, I'm aware of this. Okay, what do I do next? How can I change it? But if you don't know what to be aware of, it's just, yeah, it's just like you don't really know how to best handle or address the issue or situation. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's crucial to start teaching our kids. I
Yes.
don't have any, but kids, young people, teach girls that they're different to boys, that it's okay, all about their cycle. And you
Yes.
know, I never was taught anything about, my cycle. Having those hormones being released day in, day out means that we're more emotional. Those hormones and emotions,
Yep.
they're connected. We are more emotional than boys. It's not because we're just silly little girls. It's how our system
Genetics.
works.
Yep. And
It's
how
our
we're made up.
genetics.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Telling all our kids and having boys understand girls, it creates better relationships and better understanding all around. We can be teaching both of them and
Right.
teaching kids also that it's not just our life experiences that
Right.
can be the weight of the emotion that we're carrying.
Mhm.
Knowing that you could have inherited some grief or some loss or some anger or resentment from, our grandfathers who went to war, some hurt and grief.
Yeah.
Just talking about bits that they can understand. Okay, so your grandfather or great grandfather, they went to this event and they could have experienced all kinds of things that we
Mm.
don't really understand.
Or like the
So if
skeletons. Yeah.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
have emotions that you don't understand, it's okay. It could be because of this.
Right.
And
Right.
awareness is half of the battle.
It is. Yep. I agree. Just having
Yeah.
that. Mhm.
Having that awareness makes you feel better about what it is. It's not just me. It's, oh my God, it's not just me. It's
Right.
not I'm alone in this and I don't understand it and I don't know why. And there is something wrong with me.
Right. Right.
That's the chatter that goes on.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
so powerful. And so I have a question for you then for our audience too. It's like once someone does find that awareness, it's like, wow, I never considered that. I need to start maybe taking steps to kind of like dive into that and figure out what is it that I can do to combat this or beat this. So what are things that helped you when you were going through this, when you did finally mm, accept it?
Yeah, it
Mhm.
was it was the this amazing tool for me that cleared the inherited stuff.
Right.
That deep, like I couldn't see straight. I couldn't talk to anybody. Like my sister would ring me up and I'd sit the phone down next to me and put it on speaker
Wow.
and I could sort of hear her, but I couldn't really connect with her. I couldn't talk to people. And I think when the emotions are that deep, that all you want to do, when you start to talk, you cry,
Mhm,
it's
mhm. It's like
it's too
bottled.
hard to
Mhm.
open. I think knowing that that's okay, and in those moments there are tools, there's journaling and there's meditations and there's things like that that can help in the moment to release that state. Yeah, and the deeper getting rid of that epigenetic stuff it was what helped me, and
Right.
that's what I now help other women do.
Yes.
And healing women, like I said, when I healed me, I healed all the
Yeah.
past,
That's so
but I
cool.
can heal everyone who comes within my space in the future.
Right.
All of my nieces and nephews benefit from
Yeah.
my energy, my peace, my love, my joy, and helping them to understand their own
Yeah.
emotions and um, letting them feel that and own it and then release it. Like my brother's wife,
Hmm.
just in COVID, her brother committed suicide,
Oh, so sorry.
yeah, 12 months ago. So my nephew, he's 4.
Mm.
So he lost his uncle 12 months ago. So his mum and his grandmother, they've got all of that emotion and all of that pain and all of that
Mhm.
sadness and all that why.
Right.
And so his feelings, he doesn't understand, but it's coming out as anger. When you don't
Right.
understand and when you're hurting, it comes out in some way. Anger
Right.
is the usual way. Hurt people hurt people.
Right.
That's
Right.
another
Yeah,
saying that is
such a
is
truth.
so true.
Right.
If
It's
you're
so true.
hurting, you lash out because you don't know how to deal with your own. So that just comes out in your energy and in your words and in your tone and in everything else.
Yes.
So in allowing him, this 4-year-old, allowing him to let that out and telling him that he can, blow all his feelings into a balloon and then pop it and let it all go into the sky so it's not sitting in his
Right.
tiny little body.
Right.
That's a tiny little tool that can help in the moment.
Right. Right. That's powerful. You made me think of when we are when we are holding on to things, traumas and past traumas and whatnot. What are some ways that you've seen it manifest? Like, so we know anxiety is one way, but have you seen it manifest in other ways? Like, what other ways have you seen, just holding on to those traumas
Absolutely.
manifest?
Fears, yeah, which lead to anxiety, but fear of being hurt, fear of being seen, fear of being judged, which holds us back in a space where we disconnect. We're not owning who we are. We're not connected to who we are. We're not sharing our voice. We're not giving all of ourselves,
Mhm.
in love and joy and peace and happiness. We're holding ourselves back because there's so much fear of being judged or being seen or being heard or And guilt is another thing,
Yeah.
especially our female gender. There's guilt and shame and suppression,
Mhm.
generations and generations of that
Yeah.
that's sitting in our DNA, and it affects how we live our day-to-day life.
Right. Yeah.
Holding ourselves back again, being less than what we truly are or what we were designed to be,
Right.
because that's sitting in our DNA. And for a lot of women, they do not understand that that's what's happening in their life, because it's a part of who we are. It's just been there for so long, and it can build through life, obviously get heavier and heavier. But for a lot of women, it's sort of been there, and that's all they know.
Right.
Have you ever met somebody and they just look sour, or they look unhappy, and you just think,
Yeah.
oh, they're just a horrible person, or whatever? We judge,
Yeah. Yeah. But I
you
know what you're
know,
saying, like the stone
and
face
yeah,
or
there's just a
yeah.
face, yeah, and you know what, and people judge that face, but you after I learned what I learned, and I've put this to the test many, many times, it's like, do they know that their face looks like that, or have they been looking in the mirror for 100 years and that's just their face?
Right.
They don't realize that they have a ton of weight that's sitting in their DNA, that's literally causing them to not be the best version of themselves. They are all that they know they've ever been,
Hmm.
but there could be more. There could be a better version. There could be, more happiness, more joy, more light, more freedom when
Hmm.
clearing that. And for all of those people that I now see like that, I will make the effort to make them speak. Hi, how are you? What's going on? And they will light up because someone is connecting with them,
Acknowledging them. That's deep.
acknowledging them,
Yes.
and they don't realize that their face puts people off
Right. Yep. I've seen.
talking to them, because we judge that it's a human reaction to judge people for what you see. We judge them in like 3 seconds or whatever it is.
Uh-huh. Yep. Yep. We do.
Yeah, and
That's
we
so
think,
quick to
well,
do. Yep. Instead of
they're
thinking.
cranky, or they're
Yeah.
sour, or we put on what we think they are. But that's a lot of the time, it's not the case. Sometimes it may be. A
Right.
lot of it's they don't know that there's something wrong with their face because they've been looking in the mirror out of their whole life.
Right. And so somebody kind of brings it out to their attention or just like makes like, wait,
Yeah.
let me like loosen up here and like, hi, how are you?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes.
So there's a lot of weight sitting on us, and from
Right.
this inherited stuff. And becoming aware of that is probably the first stage of knowing that we can heal that.
Right. And then getting, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
which makes me think of the work you do. First of all, I have to say, just of my interaction with you, you're proof that this work works because you just have such a beautiful presence about you and a beautiful aura and
Thank
just,
you.
yeah, just confirmation that the work works. And
Yeah.
um yeah, we need more of it. We definitely do. I was talking about this once with my sister. We're like, this whole world needs it because when just everything that's happening in our world, it's just evidence of just people that are just like going back to the statement that you made about hurt people. And it's just what's happening in our world when we see the crimes and all of that. That's just evident of that. And then it's just crazy to see
Yeah.
how that comes a lot like we're talking about inherited trauma and just like all the
Mm,
traumas that people are carrying and walking through and
yeah.
just so deep and it just proves how important it is to do the work. Now I know you offer sessions for those that might be interested in this work because like you said, it's like the first step for someone to make that change is to be aware of it. And then now it's like to take those steps to start making those changes. So what would somebody have to do? Like if someone wanted to work with you specifically, what would a session like look like with you, or what is it something you'd like want to share with us about the work you do?
So I don't do individual sessions, because
Okay.
when you are unlayering these deep emotions, like they've been, who knows how long they've been there.
Right.
It could be, 20 years, it could be 6 generations. When you're unlayering emotions, you need to be in a container. We always want our clients to be safe. Safety is the number one thing. So when
Right.
you're unlayering emotions, and we think, and I guess as just an example, I worked with a client last week, over the last 3 weeks. And the first session, her biggest thing that she felt at that moment was this anger. that I spoke about. And when we release that anger, all of a sudden something else, we've taken the froth off the coffee, all of a sudden something else popped up. And that was hurt, and in that week between sessions, she was throwing things at her partner. She said, I had a friend with me, Maria, and she said, I look like the devil. My eyes just went crazy. This hurt popped up from nowhere.
Right.
But she wasn't aware of it because it was underneath the other stuff. Mm-hmm. So we work in this container where we're helping a woman clear all of the stuff that she's aware of, and those things that pop up through that.
Yeah.
So usually it could be 6 weeks. It's certainly not long. We want women to get in and out and free and clear of all her pain and sadness and hurt and grief and whatever is going on. We make a list. I have one just sitting here. So that woman, she started with a list like this. So there was like 50 things, emotions and beliefs. And then we rate them one at a, is it feeling like a 10 out of 10? Is it huge or is it a 5 out of 10? Where does it rate? How is it affecting your life?
Right.
And I help her identify those things.
Right.
And we go through a little bit of a tasking at the start to gain a better awareness of the and how they're playing out. And a lot of the time, self can't analyze self. There's things, even noise that's running around in her head, and it's been there for so long that she's not really aware that it's something that's holding her stuck.
Right.
So, so there's a lot that goes into before we even get to Creatrix, which is the female specific modality that I use, the therapy that literally releases. We release one thing at a time. So we worked on the anger, and then we worked on the hurt. We worked on I can't be myself. Right. She just had this belief, I can't be myself. I'm always hiding who I am. Mm-hmm. And when we worked on that one thing, I can't be myself, it released in her unworthiness and shame and I'm not good enough and all of this other stuff, because the wisdom that she gained when we were in this process, in this therapy, all the wisdom comes from within here.
Yeah.
It's locked within her unconscious, her subconscious, her soul. Right. They're her learnings that shift and change how she views the world and how she experiences it and how she feels about it and how she views it and her values. It changes everything around that one thing, right, which then can shift others as well. So, we work on healing. It is very deep. It's very healing. And it because it's been innovated specifically for women and how our mind works, it's a really simple and painless process. After we identify the emotions and rate them, that's all. I don't need to know the story. I don't need to know what happened to create that pain, that sadness, that hurt. You don't have to relive and retell the story as you do in other talk therapies. Right. What we need, we work out what the emotion is and then we rate it, and then we go through this painless, filterless state, where you're not feeling the pain, you're disconnected to the pain, so you can view a different perspective, and that's where the healing happens. And it literally recodes the DNA. You're shifting things so deeply that you've rewired how your brain thinks about things, and you've recoded your DNA. So it literally changes how your face looks.
That's just going from that sour face to the
it's like this weight has been lifted, and some women explain it like they felt like they were in a straitjacket and now they're free, and there was a heaviness but now they feel light. It is such a profound change and healing that I felt. I felt like my light had been turned back on. I was in total darkness, and the light switch was flicked back on.
Right. Just came out of that. Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah. And because I know how bad it feels, and now how light and beautiful and happy and joyful life can be, I want to help other women get from pain to that free, peaceful, joyful place in life.
Get their light back on, bring their
light on. Flick that light back on.
Yes.
And how awesome would the world be if
Right.
if
More.
we were all doing that,
Oh
you
my
know,
goodness. Everyone's,
instead of
yeah.
repeating the patterns and the pain and it adding up and adding up and adding and layering and layering and layering, and then we pass that all of that pain to the next generation, the next, we clear it out so that the next generation is free and they start living life from day one, not day, 6,000 years later.
Right, right. No, I
Yeah,
would totally with you on that. Oh, that's so
if that makes
beautiful.
sense.
It does. And it's just, we need more of it. And I love too that
Yeah,
you mentioned you do the group dynamic as well, which is powerful because the whole sisterhood wound and all of that. So that
yeah.
there is powerful too. So
Yeah,
oh, I love it.
we're speaking to the female realm of unconscious. We
Yes.
have an unconscious that creates human life, that runs that female cycle. And if you can, obviously for some women there are glitches and things that don't happen, but for a lot of women they can grow a human life, and they don't have to do that by sitting there and saying, okay, today everyone has to leave me alone, I'm growing the heart. We don't have to think about it. And that's the unconscious that women have that men don't. And that's when we need to heal it. And
Yeah.
that's why a lot of tools and processes and therapies and modalities right now are not healing, helping women at that deep level that they need.
Yes, yes, to like get to, like you mentioned, and I love that you said we have the wisdom deep in us, and it's just up
Yes.
to us to, pull back the layers and do the work to bring
Yeah.
that wisdom out and be the woman we know we're destined to be. So beautiful. So I do have to, I always ask everyone towards the end of our episode, what is some, I love quotes, so I love to ask a quote. So we said one already, but give us another quote and just some words of wisdom that you'd just like to leave our audience with. And then also just how, if anybody wants to work with you directly, how they can connect with you.
Oh, well, I guess the two that I've said are the ones that I use all the time. Understanding that hurt people and happy people help people. When you're in a place where you're happy with you, then that just flows out. We want to be a ripple.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, the ripple of
Yes, yes.
change.
Yeah. Our
Yeah,
light
for
will light
everyone
others
around
up.
us. Our ripple heals the people around us, the people we love the most. Obviously they're the closest, and then it ripples out to the people that we work with and we meet in the street and we give a beautiful smile and we say hello to. That can change their day. Just that one kind interaction can change someone's day, give them another day, another bit of hope that there's a better life. So small things create big ripples. Okay, there's one for you.
I love that one.
Yeah, so I guess for me, I want to work with women who are dead set serious about making change in their life. They're sick and tired of being where they are, and they're just ready.
Yeah.
They're just ready for something better. They're ready to let go of the pain so that they're not passing that on to their kids. They're not letting that out in their expression or their tone or their energy or anything else. They want to be free and clear of that so that they can live their best life. They can be their best self, which is how we should be living life anyway. Even, without wanting that for our kids, we should want that for ourselves.
Right.
And so many women right now just think, oh, it just is what it is, and life's just hard, and I've just got to make the best of my kids. I got to worry about them and not me. Why? You were 4-year-old once. You were that little girl. You still are that little girl. You just got older. She's still in there. She still wants to be happy and joyful and live a beautiful life. We all do. We just have to say, yes, I want that enough to invest in themselves and be
that whole, be that complete self.
Yeah. So I have a program, and at the moment I've called it the Courageously Confident Woman, because I think that's what we all want to be. We want to have confidence in ourselves. We want to be courageous to live fully knowing who we are and what we want, and trusting ourselves, being connected to ourselves, to our intuition, to our confidence, to our worth. So, and that's, clearing all of those layers is that's where it gets women back to being their confidently courageous self.
Beautiful.
And if they want to connect, my Facebook group is the Feminine Evolution.
Love that. Okay.
I can send you these links.
Yeah.
I have a business page called Restore Balance and Harmony. That's my business
I love that.
name, Restore Balance and Harmony. And I can give you a link if they want to connect and have a 20-minute conversation, a free chat to see if this is, the right thing for them right now.
Love that. Awesome. Yes, yes. I will be sure to put all of that in the show notes because I definitely think as women and mothers and caretakers, we need this work. So love what you're doing in it.
Yeah, especially when you've had that trauma and pain and loss and sadness.
Yes,
yeah,
yes, no, I agree. And to your point, you made a good point earlier, like, there's so much that's happened in the generations before us, war, oppression, and just so much that's happened over the years. And like you said, that can carry for generations, many generations.
Yeah,
so
many.
it just goes to prove why the work is powerful. And I know everybody wants healthy and happy children and families and youth and like you mentioned, nieces and nephews. I'm on the same boat with you. I don't have children myself, but I have a lot of nieces and nephews. And
Yes.
it's just important to do the work. So
yeah,
love it. Well, I thank you so much for being here. It was so
that's
beautiful
right.
to speak with you. And yeah, we'll stay connected.
Okay, beautiful. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you. Okay.